Juneteenth marks June 19, 1865, the day Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that more than 250,000 enslaved Black people in the state were free. That moment came more than 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued. In Texas, freedom had been promised, but it had not yet been enforced. Juneteenth reminds us that freedom did not come all at once, and that delayed justice carries a real human cost. And yet, from the very beginning, this day was met with prayer, music, food, and gathering. These were not simply acts of celebration. They were also acts of dignity, community, and hope. From the beginning, Juneteenth has held grief and joy, truth and hope, memory and resistance. We chose the theme, Joy as Resistance, for this Juneteenth service, to remember how important it is to hold on to joy as a beacon in the darkness. Joy calls us back to what is important in our lives. Joy is different than happiness. Happiness is fleeting, based on one's current circumstances. When I eat a chocolate ice cream cone on a hot summer evening, I feel happy. Joy is about something deeper, something at our core, something that glows inside us. As fascism spreads like a black curtain across our country, joy allows us to push back, to resist. When we sing "This Little Light of Mine," my favorite hymn, that's what we're singing about, using the light within us to push back the darkness. Joy kindles something at our center, allowing us to find our way back to ourselves and back to each other when we are feeling lost. As the writer Toy Derricott said, joy is resistance. Resilience is another term that is bandied about quite often these days, and people are encouraged to be resilient as if it is a choice. In the face of overwhelming trauma, and the history of racism in this nation is systemic and intergenerational trauma. Survival is dependent on developing ways to cope, to navigate through treacherous waters, to develop the armor needed to protect yourself. In his article, Don't Give Up, the help you're looking for is rising from within you. Barrick Mahdi Davenport said this: imagine running a race where someone secretly puts weights in your shoes the night before, and you still finished. That's not an accident. That is something else entirely. That's what it's like to be Black in America. You weren't given a choice not to run the race, and you weren't given a choice to have non-weighted shoes. And these days, the obstacles that have been overcome with blood, sweat, and tears are being placed back on the track, gutting the Voting Rights Act being one such assault. Davenport talks about the audacity it takes to survive all these assaults. That's resilience. But it comes at a heavy price. In her book, Weathering, the extraordinary stress of ordinary life on the body in an unjust society, Dr. Arlene Geronimus talks about the physiological impacts of racism on Black bodies. Black women in this country die in childbirth at 3 times the rate of white women. And while education is supposed to be the great equalizer, Black people that graduate from college are at higher risk for heart disease than white people who are high school graduates. And yes, resilience is about survival, but it takes a toll. And I'm tired. And not the kind of tired that a nap will take care of, although, as my wife Judy will tell you, I do love a good nap. No, I'm tired in my spirit. I'm weary. I'm worn down. I don't just need rest. I need restoration. Let's see, if I move my headphone, does that help? It's not me. Okay. Okay. So I don't just need rest. I need restoration. What does that look like? For me, it looks like stepping back from politics, not attending so many rallies and protests. It means watching the news less often, spending less time on social media, and even turning off WAMC from time to time. It is spending more time reading and crocheting and playing with my dog. And restoration includes coming here to Albany UU, being a part of this community that continues to commit to the work around racial and social justice, where I don't have to explain that racism is real, and where the inherent worth and dignity of all people is a shared value. It is honest, forthright conversations about white privilege. It is knowing that the Democracy in Crisis team is attending the rallies and protests that I'm not going to, understanding that white bodies are less likely to be targeted than Black and brown bodies. It is commemorating Juneteenth here in this beloved community. All of these things are restorative, and I'm grateful to be here with you in this time. May we all continue to find the joyful resistance, the resilience, and the restoration that we need.
After I graduated law school in the mid-1990s, my first job was with the United States Department of Justice. Back then, DOJ was a respectable, functioning institution with the mission of doing justice on behalf of the United States. Today, not so much. I worked as an attorney in the Civil Rights Division in the voting section. The voting section enforced what was then known as the Voting Rights Act. I refer to the Voting Rights Act in the past tense because just this past April, the United States Supreme Court decided a case that effectively destroyed the Voting Rights Act. The killing of the Voting Rights Act was not sudden. It actually took a couple of decades, and they hacked off different parts that different functions. On April 29th of this year, in Louisiana versus Calais, the Supreme Court put the final nail in the coffin of the Voting Rights Act. Voting rights advocate and political leader Stacey Abrams said this about the Calais decision. Quote, "The Voting Rights Act ended 150 years of Jim Crow and finally gave truth to the 15th Amendment. In a democracy, the faith of the people is born of a belief that they can participate in its processes and benefit from its success. The cruel ruling on Louisiana versus Calais guts what was left of the Voting Rights Act and sets us further on a path to authoritarianism, aided and abetted by the Supreme Court. Through intentional decisions that have chipped away at democracy's guardrails, we are returning to the before times when voters of color were silenced before a single vote was cast." In a statement responding to the Calais decision, Unitarian Universalist Association's Side with Love team stated, quote, "This decision is an affront to the principle of democracy and a moral injury to Unitarian Universalists and all people of faith and conscience who believe love demands that every voice be counted and every person protected. UUs believe that the right to vote is sacred, and to deny that right is to deny one's inherent worthiness and dignity. The UUA response to the Calais decision also declares that, quote, side with love, and the Unitarian Universalist Association call on Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act without delay. And we call on us, of faith, to remember our power. When people organized for civil rights, they did not have the courts on their side, nor Congress, nor public opinion. But faith showed up. It must show up again through our actions. Let's recommit ourselves to the long, faithful work of ensuring that democracy belongs to absolutely everyone.